Your baby's mind is growing even before they arrive. The more you talk and sing and play, the more their mind will thrive. You gotta talk with your baby, play with your baby, read to your baby, make out you're a lion. Talk with your baby, play with your baby, read to your baby. Your words will grow their mind.
This season, we are recording on Kaurna land at PodBooth studio each and every episode, and we would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging.
Your words will grow their mind.
Well, hello and welcome to the Words Grow Minds Parent Podcast, where we are dedicated to providing you with all the information you need about early childhood development. I'm Kate. I'm a mum of Sam and of Charlie. And I'm also a passionate advocate that we need to improve early childhood outcomes in Australia.
And I'm Amelia. I'm a mum to Grace, who's 6, and to Ted, who is 2. I'm a journalist, and I just moments ago found a little bit of cheese on my dress, which isn't mine. So I am ready to go to deliver a professional podcast here, Kate. What have we got today?
Well, today we're going to talk about parents, and we're going to talk about parents. Parents, we're all trying to do our best. We're all trying to find information. But of course, there is so much out there. Not all of it is helpful. So how do we find what matters and what is the tone that's going to work?
I have my hand up. I am an avid doom scroller at night. I've got all the parental Instagram pages, and in the middle of the night, they all seem like they're gospel, but then you can sort of take a step back and, perhaps some are more aligned with you and others aren't. But, I'm really excited for today's guest because this is someone whose work I absolutely love and I think most Aussie mums would.
I know you do, and we've actually got Genevieve Muir, who's with us today, who we came across because of her social media content, which just hit the mark for you, and you said you've got to look at this, but more so we need to talk to her. So we're going to get the answers from Jen. Jen's got an amazing background.
She does. She's a parenting educator and founder of Connected Parenting. She's an obstetric social worker, author and co-host of her own podcast, Beyond the Chaos, and she is the proud mum of 4 boys. She is passionate about helping families to connect and thrive amid the many challenges of modern parenting. Jen, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
So, Jen, we're going to get straight into it. As we said, parents are often looking for answers. They might go online. It's not always helpful and sometimes makes you feel even worse about yourself. What's your advice for parents in that situation?
I think the problem with a lot of advice, and I say this because I teach classes when people have their first baby at the Mater Hospital in Sydney, and also when they have their second baby. And these parents, I noticed the difference for these parents compared to where I was at. So my eldest is 16. I remember when I had him, there was no social media. There were maybe 2 or 3 parenting books. You just picked one. You maybe read it, you maybe didn't. And you ran with that. And I now look at these guys and I can see how overwhelmed they are. And they're 48 hours in. And I think this is one of the biggest extra challenges that this generation has. One of the things I say to them is the info is on the whole pretty good. We've known what kids need since about 1960. We've further proved that through neuroscience. So we kind of know what kids need. But it just will not all apply to your kid, or it's got to be something that we sort of take as something that doesn't have to be done all the time. So even the advice that is useful of, the stuff you see that's like, oh, it's better if you praise kids for their effort, not their outcome. Mm-hmm. Now that's good advice, but if we are so caught up in our heads that you're like, good job, good effort.
You shouldn't say good job though. I love the effort you put into it, yeah.
I've turned my child into a people pleaser, and then we can't function. It's not helpful. And the other thing that's not helpful that we are the first generation to be doing ever, like sitting on the couch, doom scrolling, looking for the answers as to how we either ruined our child, what we are missing, all of that stuff. We're the first generation to do that. And the joke I make, it's not a joke though. I'm a child of the 80s. In the 80s, there used to be an ad that came on TV at 10 o'clock at night that would say, do you know where your children are? So that is how far we've come. And I'm not saying we go back to like total neglect, but surely we've got to sort of say, do you know what? And this is what I say to parents all the time, because of all the information you see out there, all that advice, it's useful if you're thinking of it as something that you do some of the time, and about the amount of the time that I'm always talking about, which is proved by evidence, is about 30%. So for about 30% of the time, the way that I talk to parents about, you know, really connecting consciously with your kids, or the way we might set boundaries, or the way we might really sit in their feelings without fixing it or solving it, you're doing that about 30% of the time. You are absolutely killing it. And if you're sitting on the couch at night just thinking, oh, I snapped at my kid at 5 p.m, the thing I say to parents is, I want you to track back and just think of all that stuff that was in your 30% before then, because our brains, the added problem is our brains have a negativity bias in that they will focus on the one thing that we got wrong in a whole day, or the 5 things we got wrong in a whole day, and our brains will not hone in on all the stuff we got right, all of the beautiful stuff we do for our kids.
Do you think there is a tendency, you know, we talk about the village, and people's villages look different. They might not be as readily available as they were, you know, decades ago. Do you think perhaps because there is this changeable village, the definition is different, people look for that online? Do you think that's where that comes from as well, for people searching for those answers for parents?
There's been a couple of really significant shifts when it comes to the village, and one of them that people might not sort of be as aware of is actually something that happened through the 80s and the 90s, and it was kind of the safety house movement, and the sense that stranger danger was a big issue. So once upon a time, children were part of a broader village, and you were kind of raised by that village. And then there was kind of this, it was actually misinformation that came up through the 80s and 90s. I'm old enough to remember it. You don't look old enough to remember it. But suddenly we decided that any man with a van was a threat to children. And so we brought all the children in and we created safety houses. And the thing that we were taught right through school was, you know, never ever talk to a stranger. Now, what we know and what we now know is that, you know, when, you know, children are abused or when things happen to them that are, you know, absolutely unthinkable, 95% of the time or more, it is always in our own homes by someone we know. So we had that wrong. We were teaching parents and teaching the world about the wrong risks. And so we brought all the children in. And then on top of that, you know, we're even more scared now. We think, well, the world's too big and it's too dangerous. And so we sort of brought parenting into the house, and it went from being the village and kind of everybody raised kids, and kids raise themselves in a way, in that one of the things kids absolutely need for healthy development is free play in mixed multi-age groups where there is risk of harm, which I know sounds crazy in this day and age where, you know, we're wrapping our kids in cotton wool, but actually that kind of mixed age group where you all head down to the creek and the older children police and kind of teach the younger children, all of that we're missing in terms of how we grow kids. And now all the pressure is on 1 to 2 people in the silo of the little family home, and it is too much. Like, you know, it is too much.
Do you think that we're putting more pressure on parents now? And I ask that because as you were speaking then, I was reflecting on the fact that I seriously put to my husband a few days ago that maybe we should air tag the children so we could never, ever lose them. Because, you know, we love our kids and we might know the stats, we might know where these things happen, but we don't want to take the risk. And, you know, part of the Words Grow Minds program is all about putting out there how much difference you can make to your child's entire life by the way that we treat them in the early years. So as we increase awareness of this, it makes sense that parents then go, oh, I want to find more information. Oh, I'm going to look for all of this. So how do we get the balance right between the early years are really important. We absolutely know that it affects outcomes across the child's whole life, but also not putting so much pressure on that we're all sending ourselves spare.
Yeah.
I think the answer lies in boundaries. I am a passionate advocate for boundaries, but not old school, go to your room and smack you with the wooden spoon boundaries. Modern boundaries are, I think, the answer to the epidemic of overwhelm where we've gotten all this information, that's good information, but we think we're applying it 100% of the time. So that is burning us out. On top of that, we're working harder than previous generations under more financial strain. We're working like we don't have kids. We're raising kids like we don't work. We're also, looking after our aging parents.
I'm feeling so heard right now.
Right? Right? It's so much. And then we're sort of taking this information, and because we have less kids, like, again, tracking back once upon a time, you had 10 children because they worked for you picking fruit over summer. And now you have, 1 to 2 children and you work for them, running them around their million curricular activities because we're so wanting to turn out really good kids. So it comes from love, but I think the answer lies in boundaries. And the biggest thing I say to parents, and I'm so passionate about it, is as a parent, you are allowed to, in any situation, your child wants a biscuit, they want another story, they want another extracurricular activity, or maybe they're just climbing on you in a way that you're not finding comfortable. You are allowed as a parent to ask yourself this question: does this work for me or my child? And the reason why I think that question is so important is because if it is not working for you, the chances are it is not working for your child. And that's the bit that I think we need to bring to the current conversation for parents. Yes, the connection's good. Yes, our ability to allow our kids to share their feelings with us will change the world. I'm passionate about it, right? Any problem that we look at, and I did 17 years in law and justice, I'm telling you, it all can get changed in the first 5 years. So just allowing kids some of the time to have their emotions, right? So powerful. But also parents are allowed to say, you're allowed to be upset about that. I am going to keep cooking dinner some of the time. Or I get that you want to be on me right now. It is not comfortable for you to climb on me while I'm feeding the baby. So you can sit next to me. I don't want you on me. And our kids are allowed to get upset about it. I think what this could do, this one fundamental thing of parents knowing they're allowed to say what works for them and doesn't work for them, brings the parent back to sort of being able to lead the house and enjoy their parenting and enjoy like being able to take, like, mummy needs a minute or 20 or a night. That's really important. But also for our kids, it's actually teaching them to be able to tolerate frustration, not getting exactly what they want all the time, which will be a wonderful gift in terms of the things that we want to teach our kids. So for me, I think that what we did was we taught parents what not to do. Not a good idea to hit your kids. I totally agree. That's good advice. But we didn't step in and say, well, you are though allowed to say no.
I love this permission.
I love it too. Now, Jen, one of the other things that is different, I guess, for this generation of parents is, as you said, we're working harder. We've got less time. We might have less of a village, less real life connections. But I remember when I had my first child, I signed up to every local online mums group, all these different Adelaide mums and Barbs, Adelaide, whatever it is. I was a member of all of them because when I was up in the middle of the night and my child couldn't sleep, I wanted to know that I wasn't alone, and I got some comfort from seeing what other mums in particular were going through. But also it was a place where lots of people would ask their advice. And of course, the people that are then giving the advice are not experts. It can be really judgmental. It can be wrong. It can be outdated. How do we get the balance right of people wanting support, but also needing to get good, accurate information? Like, what are your recommendations of how we fill that void and where people might go to get that information that is helpful?
It's really hard. It's a really hard question. I wish I could tell you. One of the things I talk to parents about is the idea that I think sometimes you sort of know when something doesn't sit with you straight away. So I can remember being in a maternity unit, feeding one of my babies, sitting cross-legged on a bed. I do yoga. It was my second baby. I knew what I was doing. And within the space of 10 minutes, I had one midwife come in and yell at me because that is not a good position to feed a baby in. Right. And I had one come in and say, how beautiful. You look like you're having a really good time there with your baby. And so I chose to listen to the one that felt right. I know that sounds so hard, particularly for parents that are feeling so overwhelmed and like it's coming at them from every direction. But what I love is this idea that we can, even to someone we know. So someone we know, like I always say, everyone's going to give you advice around, what you're, even from the minute you have your first baby, everyone will be like, don't let that baby manipulate you. And I think that we can actually say, thank you so much, and kind of let it wash over us a little bit. Or I think if you notice that you're looking at something online and it's not making you feel good, or it doesn't make you feel supported, if you can know in your heart that will not help your parenting. I don't care what the advice is, even if it's some great parent educator, even if it's me. So I think, unfortunately, it is on us to filter the information that's coming to us. And one of the recommendations I often do at the end of a Zoom session when I work one-on-one with parents is I say, my prescription for you is to unfollow some parenting pages and start looking at more funny cat videos, because I think that's what you actually need.
That is the first time we've ever had funny cat videos recommended on this podcast, but I'm happy to support it.
Now, Jen, I'll get you to talk us through your book, Little People, Big Feelings. What was the inspiration behind it? And when you were writing it, were you thinking of anyone in particular?
Gosh, first of all, I never wanted to write a parenting book. I never wanted to put my face on social media. I was so reluctant. I was teaching these classes. I didn't want to add to the information overload. The reason I wrote the book, I had coffee with Maggie Dent one day and she just told me, you're writing a book. And if Maggie Dent tells you to write a book, you just write a book.
Yes.
You do whatever Maggie says.
Yes, do what Maggie says. Okay. So I just went, okay, if Maggie Dent's told me to write a book, I just have to write a book. But who was the book for? It was for me. When I was struggling with my babies, I came into parenting thinking I would win the Olympics for mumming. If the awards were to come up, I would win, because I was so well read. I was the daughter of like a family therapist, raised and marinated in ideas around emotions and attachment. And so coming into it and really wanted babies, had gone through infertility to have my first, and I was just like, I am going to be the world's best mum. Like and then I found myself, in my kitchen with a 2-year-old that would push and hit and bite and cry and melt down, a baby with reflux. I was not enjoying being a mum. I was not being the mum I wanted to be in the moment. I just found myself absolutely going, this is not the experience that I thought it would be. And it was little bits of finding a few things that helped me. Yes, some parent education, but the other thing was self-compassion and an awareness of why I was struggling. Because once I understood, it's not that I'm a bad mum that's like just wants to yell at my kids, or it's not that my kid is actually a bad kid destined for prison, which is what I believed. It is actually that, he is totally developmentally normal. And so what I wanted with that book, I want it to be the book that, yes, gave parents the information they needed, particularly in those early years, but it didn't make them feel worse about themselves as a parent. And if anything, my biggest goal for that book is that it would make parents feel seen. And every bit of feedback I've had starts with, I'm reading the forward, I'm already crying, I feel seen. And I go, yes. That is what I was looking for.
One of the reasons why I'm really loving this conversation is because a lot of our focus and a lot of our episodes are focused on the child and the child development and the benefits of positive interactions and talking and reading and singing and playing. But one thing that keeps coming through is that in order for the child to thrive, the parent needs to be confident, empowered and supported. So other than buying your excellent book and then going and getting the follow-up too, you support parents in a range of different ways through facilitating, you talked about your work in hospitals. Could you just give some advice for parents that do want good information, they want to be more supported and get the right answers? What are some options other than scrolling on the internet that you would recommend?
Okay, so I reckon that looking for an evidence-based sort of tested course like Circle of Security or Tuning Into Kids is a good option. And these are often delivered for free, which I love, or $20. So that's really, it's achievable, but that can be a big time commitment, but that's one place that we can start. But I would love to just share something that I think is so simple, and I think it could be for some people just as helpful. But many, many years ago, I learned, and it was from Maggie Dent, I learned that just, this idea of just starting with connection. We all love our kids, but, what is it that really makes a difference? And Maggie said that just a thumbs up and a wink could like reset an afternoon. And I remember standing in my backyard in Brisbane. I just had my third child. It was just like one of those days where time was going backwards, and my eldest child was doing my head in and just was picking on the youngest sibling constantly. And, you know, again, just a hard moment. And I thought, all right, I'm just going to give this a go. And I remember kind of really consciously conjuring up, like, I really do love you. And I threw that love across the backyard and I said his name and I winked and I thumbs up at the same time. And one of the things I noticed was like literally I saw it sort of ripple through his body. And I went, that's really interesting. And that sent me on a bit of a personal journey where I would just like, I'd be in the kitchen and I'd be having a really hard afternoon and I would just chase my kids around the kitchen bench and make them laugh. And then I'd get 20 more minutes without a meltdown where I could do dinner. But something really significant happened. As I started to throw that connection in a way that they could process it across to my kids, I started to really enjoy being a mum. And so the answers to kind of what they needed and I needed started to just happen in this relationship, and it just felt amazing. And it's not to say I don't snap and I don't still have meltdowns and I don't make a ton of mistakes, but if I could say one thing always, no matter what struggle you're ever in, whether it's a 2-year-old or a 6-year-old or 16-year-old like I've got who's so cranky, starting with connection, finding a way to light up, like the way a golden retriever lights up when you come home, even if you've only been gone for 30 seconds and they're just like so happy to see you. Trying to light up for our kids I reckon it is 90% of the answer to like everything. And then the rest of it, you can be so flawed in the way you do everything else. Like we're doing the best that we can, how we handle things, taking a bit of information, do the best you can for sure. Then after the connection, the next thing is knowing if we can repair, that is everything. So just being able to say sorry, which not many of our parents could do, is huge. And I know most parents are doing that. How amazing. How amazing that we're busy with all this stuff and we're connecting more than a stay-at-home mum did in 1974, and we're apologising, right? How cool is that? How much would we have all loved just one apology, right? And then on top of this, if I can say that the thing that I think above all of this would help everyone go better, start talking nicely to yourself. You snap or you're struggling or you're there on night one with a brand new baby in the hospital and you're thinking, why am I so anxious? Why am I watching my baby breathe? Like, you know, why can't I settle? Why I thought I'd be a cool mum. No wonder I'm anxious. I've never done this before. Or your 2-year-old's melting down because their banana broke and you feel stressed because you're trying to do something that no one ever did for you. And you go, yeah, of course I feel stressed because this is really hard. And 2-year-olds and the amount they melt down is unrelenting. And I'm doing my best. I think if we could do that, genuinely put your hand on your heart and be nice to yourself, I think that in itself is such a good start. And maybe ditch some of the books actually, and maybe read a bit less and just try connection.
This is a great time to just take a really quick break. Jen, thank you so much. We've had some really cool nuggets in there. When we come back, though, we're going to ask you, and I think that kind of leads into it a little bit, your theory on good enough parenting. We'll sort of talk to you really quickly about boundaries and how you got into this work too, because you've got so many different feathers in your cap. We really want to hear about that, so we'll come back shortly.
Your baby's mind is growing even before they arrive. The more you talk and sing and play, the more their mind will thrive. You gotta talk with your baby, play with your baby, read to your baby, make out you're a lion. Talk with your baby, play with your baby, read to your baby. Your words will grow their mind. Every time you interact with your child, you're helping grow their mind. For more information, visit wordsgrowminds.org.au.
Okay, well, welcome back. Jen, I now want to talk about your background and what led you to do all of this amazing work across a number of different avenues around supporting parents.
Honestly, it comes from my own struggle. So I'm like I said before, I'm not a mum. I thought I'd come in winning the Olympics, and like all of us, I got brought to my knees by my toddlers and by the struggle to be the mum that I knew on paper I wanted to be. So for me, the knowledge was not enough. There had to be another piece to that, which is self-compassion, self-kindness, giving ourselves the same support that we would give our child in those tricky moments with our kids, and that same support that we maybe didn't get if we were sent to our room. So for me, it was that actually I struggled. And then in addition to that, I worked in social work for, 1,000 billion years. And I was working across mental health. I was working in law and justice for legal aid for a long time, in domestic violence. And what I was also seeing through my work is that if every child just had one grown up that could, make them feel loved and safe and seen in the early years particularly, that it could change the world. That so many of the problems that we see in justice and in DV and in drug and alcohol and everything that I worked in, I was like, if just one person. So then I go into my own parenting, of course, with the extra pressure of like, I'm a social worker, and so I have to raise good men, because I've got 4 of them, and I have to raise good men as well. And I found it really hard to be that person. So, like I said, I am a reluctant parent educator. I really did not intend to be doing this for others, but I can't shut up about it.
We don't want you to.
So my problem is, my friends are very relieved, because I used to just bang on about, attachment and this and that to my friends. I'd be like this and that and blah, blah, blah. And now I can just go do it on social media, and they're like, oh, thank God, she's got an outlet.
That would have been a phone call.
Well,
otherwise.
You can come and talk to us whenever. Yeah. I just want to go back and dig in a little bit deeper around being kind to yourself, because that sounds great. But when you're sleep deprived, when you really feel like you're failing, when it's the most important thing in the world to you that you raise good children, that you're a good mum. Like I remember I used to wonder, you talk about winning the Olympics. I remember when I had my first child saying to my husband, how do you win at parenting? Like, where's the
key?
Where's the finish line? And you go, yeah, I've done it, I've won. And we are really hard on ourselves because we love our children and we want the best for them. What are some things when you're like actually in that, I suck, I've failed, my child deserves better?
But also it's just the wildest time of just transformation. Like you've taken out an income. You've, what are interest rates doing?
Well, your whole identity has changed.
Completely. And there's a lot of pressure on you.
So how do you be kind? Like what are some specific things you would say to yourself or recommend people say to themselves to kind of get you through that? Because to me, it sounds easier than I think it would actually be in practice.
I want to give you a really practical idea that I use still and constantly. It's a Brené Brownism, but I think it is so helpful for parents. So often our idea or the failure in us or the failure in our kids or this, so just say, I yell at my kids completely. I do all the wrong things, and I do this all the time. And then you might find yourself just going, that's it. Well, they're all, they're destined for prison, and that's it. I caused it. It all happened today. So often, and this is the actual practical strategy that I would recommend, and this is what I do for myself. Ideally, write it down, but otherwise say it out loud to yourself or say it in your head. The story I'm telling myself is that today, because I yelled at my child, I have ruined them. And go further, because there's always more. And they are now destined for prison. Or I'll give you another one. I had a mum recently, a story she was telling herself was that because she'd allowed the older child to watch a bit of TV while she was at the end of a very difficult second pregnancy, her child now could never and would never play independently. Ruined for life. And let's take that further. We'll probably never have friends. That's probably what's going to happen, right? So I think it's really important we pull out the story we're telling ourselves. That story is really powerful, and that's fear talking. And this is what we then do. And here is what I know. And I love writing this down. I know that a little bit of TV at the end of a pregnancy probably saved us. Or I know that you're allowed to yell at your kids and it's really important that you repair, but I did that, or I will do that. I know that I'm a really good mum and I'm doing the best that I can. You can come up with, and often what you'll find is the list of I knows. What you're actually doing is taking your prefrontal cortex out of fight, flight, or freeze, and you're bringing it back online, but you're actually offering yourself that kindness and that compassion that will drop your cortisol and allow you to be the parent you want to be, in that next moment better. If we stay in the place of, well, I've mucked up my kids and I'm a terrible mum, our cortisol's higher, we're in fight, flight or freeze, and we are less able to regulate for our children. Now, sometimes we can't pull ourselves out of it, but that is what I do. The other things I do, sometimes if I'm in a car and I can't get away and I just don't want to do the story I'm telling myself, I just play the song Under Pressure by, who's that by? Queen?
By Queen.
Dun, 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 dun. And I'm just like, under pressure.
Anyone can be in the car as well, or just solo? Is it? And you might have passengers in the car?
Oh, I've got like 1,000 passengers always, and they're super loud. And I drive a bus, and I just put on Under Pressure because it stops me from yelling. So, like, and it just acknowledges it's like, that's kind. That's just it's Queen, isn't it? That's Queen, being kind to me. Yeah, they're just going, we see you, Jen, under pressure. So that, that's
I did not think Freddie Mercury would make an appearance on this podcast.
I love that he has.
I just want all parents to know that, like, if you are a parent who is just listening to this podcast today, you're a good enough parent. In fact, you're an amazing parent. We look back for generations and generations. Parents did the best they could, but they were not seeking information in the way we are now. Now, again, the information's good, but please try to apply it. And some of the time is enough. I always say to parents, it's best if when we set a boundary, if we can wrap that in an empathy sandwich. So we letting our kid know that they're allowed to have their feelings. We still say no, and they're allowed to be emotional about that, right? So it's sort of way that we do it. But any parent of a 2-year-old that is not also bribing that child or thinly veiled threatening that child to get out of the park some of the time is lying. And that is okay, because you've got to do a million transitions through the day. But if just some of the time, imagine for our kids, if just 30% of the time someone's there going, I can see you're having a hard time and I'm willing to sit with you in it. What a gift that we give our kids, but you do not have to do it always. So good enough. Put 30%, tattoo it on your forehead if you need to. But
before we let you go, Jen, one of the things you're known about, and we've talked about it earlier in this chat as well, is boundaries. You think boundaries are incredibly effective, and across your socials, you give some great strategies on that as well, which we love and your followers love. You've got thousands. How do you suggest parents go about setting boundaries with their children, especially in the early years, for those who've listening and they might not have come across your work before?
Really quick summary, it's good to have some really core rules. So like things that without a doubt you step in for. We don't hit or hurt. We don't call each other names. We don't damage our property. And when someone's crying or they say stop, we stop and ideally check on them. And know that your kids will absolutely need you to constantly step in and help them with those for a really long time, like for a really, really, really long time. So that is helpful. Then outside of that, know that the biggest question is, does this work for me? Does this work for my child? If it doesn't work for you, you are allowed to say no. And ideally, we wrap our no in that empathy sandwich. I really understand what you wish or want. Here is what is going to happen. And we're going to be really clear about that. The answer is no, because I think that's kind. And then we're not expecting, just because we've set a boundary in 3 beautiful steps, for our child to say, oh, thank you so much for, keeping me safe. I'll just go colour in. They are going to be back arching off the cupboard door for the cookie that they wanted. And that's okay. I think, again, if our kids are allowed to just have that massive meltdown because we say no to the biscuit just that once, and they're not, that we're able to let them do that, it's such an incredible gift for everybody, because it ultimately makes our kids feel safe and loved. And I think it is just as important as all the other stuff, is that ability to hold those limits that protect our self-care, protect the fact that often in our families, it's not just the needs of one child. There's maybe 4 of us on a boat. And so anything we have to decide is got to work for the whole unit. And it's a good enough approach as well.
And so while they are back arching, trying to get the cookie, or in my son's case, the blue cupcake this morning, are we just letting them sit with it? Are we going,
Boundaries are always physical. So especially if your children are young, you are between them and the cupcake.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we mix up, again, because we told parents don't smack and don't threaten, and this is good advice, but we didn't sort of say what to do. So we're often there going, don't touch that cupcake. If you touch that cupcake, I'm going to count to 3. I don't know what I'm going to do at 3, but
but please don't.
And actually none of that is a boundary. A boundary is, I can see you really wanting that cupcake, even though I've said no, I'm going to move between you and the cupboard. I'm not letting you have that cupcake. Doesn't work for me. I've said no. And there's so much kindness in that, because our kids get to rest in that. Like, yeah, I didn't get what I wanted, but my parent was like able to handle it even when I had those big feelings and kind of push back. And P.S. for anyone that gave in and said, okay, fine, have the cupcake. Just know.
Maybe.
Just know.
We needed to get to childcare, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No judgment.
You didn't need it all.
Again, the question you might back up and ask yourself in the kitchen with the cupcake before we get there, you say no, your kid says, I really want it. And then you say, does it work for me? Does it work for my child? And you're allowed to go, do you know what? I have bigger fish to fry. I need to get this child to childcare. I need to get to work. So you know what? Have a cupcake. Let's eat it in the car. And that's totally fine. You're winning. As long as you also have the confidence at some point to say, I get how much you want the cupcake. I'm not okay with it. My answer's no. And know that that is kind. And our kids may not thank us for it today, but they will absolutely rest in the love of it longer term.
Jen, this isn't the answer that you gave, but I'm going to give it. How do we learn about setting boundaries? Well, we all look out for Jen's upcoming book, which is all about boundaries, and we'll all be experts on it. We have one question that we ask all of our guests before we let you go.
And I'm going to be really interested to hear what this is from you, Jen, because you've just passed on so much kindness to parents listening and so many wonderful pieces of info here as well. This is the question we ask every expert that comes on our show. All that you know and all the experience that you have, what is the one thing you wish parents out there knew?
Oh, that they're doing a beautiful job. Like, they're doing a good enough job. They're doing so much better than they think.
You are amazing. It has been such a delight to talk with you today, Jen. Jen Muir, thank you so much for joining the Words Grow Minds Parent Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, I have been so excited for this chat with Jen, and boy, did she deliver. So many notes, but that real 30%, some of the time is good enough. 30%, if you were doing the best you can and trying to do all the things, even 30% of the time, that's great. I also love the permission to just say, you know what, this isn't working for me. And it's totally, how many times are you just in these situations where you're worn down from a day at work or whatever, and you just sort of almost passively just go, oh, whatever, I just don't care. Like, you know, just this permission to go, no, that doesn't actually work.
Yeah, I just want Jen to be my new best friend, really. I want Jen to always be there saying, just be kind to yourself. Yeah, you're doing great. And
maybe she'll bring her boombox along. You'll listen to Queen a little bit.
We might do a little bit of a sing-along. But I think that's the one message that I hope all of our listeners take out of this, is the fact that you're listening to this podcast to learn about parenting, to learn about child development, shows you're a great parent, and we should just be kind to ourselves.
That does bring us to the end of today's episode. We are going to put some resources that Jen gives us on the show notes of today's episode. But a huge thanks once again to Jen Muir, and we will see you next time for more Words Grow Minds.
Thanks for listening to the Words Grow Minds Parent Podcast. We love hearing from you, so please subscribe, review and comment on the podcast. And for plenty of ideas to support your child's development, go to wordsgrowminds.org.au and follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Your words will grow their mind.